At chapter 227 to 228, Isamu grimaced, not really in the mood to tell that kind of tale. He actually hoped his host would not ask again about Itachi and their suspicions, but Rei looked far too eager to hear it. Sighing in resignation, he decided he might as well tell the story from the very start. To put things into proper perspective, I have to start right at the founding of Konoha. I have no desire to repeat well-known history, nor spin some long-winded and boring tale of the Uchiha clan's evolution since the founding. All I want to point out is that people close to Madara's level are extremely rare and valuable to clans. Isamu pointed out with a sad smile. Since the founding of Konoha, the Uchiha clan produced only 5 S-ranked ninjas altogether. You must understand that strong ninjas are the lifeline of a clan, any clan. And yet currently there is no S-ranked ninja from any Konoha clan, except Tsunade Senju. Aha, so that's where Itachi comes in. He was supposed to be your secret ace and the symbol of Uchiha's resurging power. The new Uchiha genius. Rei chuckled in understanding, and Isamu smiled sadly. Yes. When Fugaku discovered the sheer talent of his firstborn, he was immensely proud. He might not be the best man, but he genuinely cared about his son despite not really showing it. On the other hand, he was also the clan head, and that meant certain responsibilities. Having a strong heir was a must for Fugaku, and so Itachi was trained and raised to love his clan. After all, one day it should have been him to lead the clan. Isamu explained bitterly, "Our clan was always somewhat shunned, sometimes justly, other times not. That was fine. The real problems, however, came with the Kyuubi rampage." Ideyu, he quieted down for a second to calm himself. "We were relocated to the outskirts, and that was unacceptable for many, demeaning even, the proverbial last straw. And so, the young Itachi got an even heavier burden placed on his shoulders since some radical views started to appear among some of the more arrogant Uchiha clansmen." Hearing that, Izumi seemed a bit saddened before her eyes hardened, as any compassion drained from her when she imagined the corpse of her grandmother. It was obvious that whatever friendship there was now completely shattered. Itachi was the most promising Uchiha in the last 50 years. It was only natural Fugaku would push him hard in his training, though... Isamu grimaced. "I warned Fugaku not to place the boy into Konoha Anbyu. I vehemently argued against that. The boy was supposed to be our most important pillar. Sure, in Anbyu, Itachi won a lot of prestige and political leverage for the clan. Sadly, it also gave Hiruzen free access to the kid." Isamu shook his head in discontent. "And it again goes and comes to the fabled Hiruzen Sarutobi. Honestly, how many talented young boys did the man corrupt?" Rei idly mused. He was aware that being Hokage didn't come with a free pass to do anything one desired. Dictatorship or not, clans had rights. The Hokage couldn't really go on his merry way influencing clan heirs without any reason. Around 2 years ago, the situation became more unbearable for the clan. Discontent voices rose to more prominence, and the more arrogant ninjas started to openly complain. Funnily enough, I have no idea where it even all started. Was it intentional or not? Who knows? Isamu admitted. That said, Fugaku had to do something, and fast, or face a civil war in the clan, something he wanted to desperately avoid. It would simply be a lose-lose situation no matter which side would win. It was obvious Isamu was disgruntled at remembering that. Not like Rei could blame the man. Family killing a family really didn't have any positive outcome, no? The Uchiha clan would be weakened either way. Civil war? Are you serious? Mariko gulped as she for the first time heard something like that, despite being one of the best-connected merchants in the Uchiha clan. Unfortunately, we didn't advertise it to the civilians, but the radicals were pretty stubborn then. Fugaku really had no other choice than to start the rebellion club and go complaining/threaten the Hokage that our clan had had enough. Much to my shame, I was the only one against the plan from the Elder Council. It was obvious to whoever logically considered the thought of one clan going against an entire village that we would lose if it came to trading blows. Well, duh. There were barely 1,000 Uchihas before the massacre, and from that only about 200 were ninjas. And that is counting genins, 200 versus a village of thousands. Gee, one doesn't have to be a genius to figure it out. Rei mentally rolled his eyes. Then again, Fugaku never really wanted the situation to escalate into an open rebellion. Isamu shrugged, and the other occupants of the room stilled in surprise. So the guy wasn't total bonkers then, Rei thought in relief. It was simply a ploy to appease the radical Uchihas and buy time while Fugaku negotiates with the Hokage. He needed time to figure out how to calm them down. Unfortunately, it took more than 2 years of back and forth, one side asking for something with the other denying it. Suddenly, even Fugaku was unable to stop the radicals, and if he went against them, he would be usurped. It was only logical to play along while trying harder to persuade Hokage to give the Uchiha clan something that would calm them down. Itachi got involved and became a double spy due to his identity as an ANBU operative and Uchiha clan heir. It was surely on Hiruzen's insistence, despite the fact it is frowned upon to ask a clan member to spy on his own clan, much less his own clan head. The boy must have thought himself subtle about it, but really, as if a 12-years-old could outsmart old geezers who were in this trade before his father was not even a distant thought. Isamu chuckled in amusement at the memory before his lips twisted into a grimace. It was also gut-wrenching to see the father and the son progressively more and more mistrustful of each other behind their cold facades. But worst of all, it all escalated so quickly. Isamu shook his head in sadness. And when Itachi attacked, none of you actually expected it, did you? Rei smirked. Danzo basically blindsided them. They were well on their way to negotiate some tangible concessions when Danzo suddenly forged a signed order for a wholesale massacre. Well, to be honest, who would expect to be attacked in their own village, in their own clan compound, by their own ninja? No, we really didn't expect it from Itachi. Spying, sure. Sabotage? Possible. Misinformation? Obviously. But a killing spree and backstabbing? The boy is 13 for Senin's sake. Isamu snorted. There were rumors, but that's all that was to it. Simple rumors about Itachi's hand in Shisui's mysterious death. Nobody expected him to start cutting people down that night. He was our damned clan heir, Isamu angrily retorted, flaring his nostrils as he vented the sudden slip in his self-control. And here we are, Rei said. And yet, here we are, Isamu admitted somewhat resignedly. Let's just focus on the current problem of integration. I'm far too old to deal with problems like what happened yesterday. Rei stood in the kitchen and busied himself with cooking for himself and Tsunade, who sat behind a table, completely nude, with her breasts resting on it as she supported her chin with her hands, nothing concealing her silly but happy grin and tomato-like blush, while her eyes contently rested on Rei's back. It was one of those mornings where she could simply let go of every worry and focus only on herself and Rei, basking in her beloved's sweet, satisfying, calming presence as he calmly cooked for her, while she tried to put herself together after yet another mind-blowing night full of senjutsu-enhanced sex. She really needed a few calm hours to make sure her shivering and twitching ceased. A few hours of bliss that Rei promptly made even better by cooking her his nature energy-filled food that did nothing but put her that much closer to yet another orgasm. Oh. Tsunade already knew what they will be doing after the anticipated mouth-watering breakfast. After all, ever since they returned from visiting the fire capital, this little morning ritual of having the breakfast together was quickly becoming one of Tsunade's sinful enjoyments she really didn't want to stop. Ray just had to find yet another way to make her completely addicted to him, didn't he? A well-rested body and slack, still half-asleep mind, post-coital bliss that simply won't cease for hours, and food that could melt her with sheer deliciousness and the incredible aroma. It was simply torture by pleasure. Tsunade shivered yet again, her fingers slightly digging into her cheek and her legs clamping together while her toes curled as her still sensitive body reacted to her thoughts. Gritting her teeth as she tried to prevent herself from becoming a fleshy puddle of goo on the table by having a thought-induced orgasm, Tsunade recognized her immediate need for distraction. She couldn't bask in the soothing presence Ray was purposefully excluding while her body was still so sensitive, and the rich aroma of his food was making her mind wander into places where her back was pressed into the soft bed, while his body pressed on hers and his strong arms. Aga! Tsunade mentally shook herself when her mind again wandered, while outwardly it came out as a soft, self-conscious whimper. Gotta talk about something or... Quickly. Tsunade contently closed her eyes to calm down a bit, so she can at least think straight for a second before uttering the first thing on her mind and embarrassing herself more. Oh, how she both loved and hated these moments. Any news from Konoha? They still have no clue what happened during the Uchiha massacre. Tsunade finally found a topic they both had in common. Honestly, it was a bit awkward the first time she started ranting about advanced medic ninja stuff, and she only after 2 hours realized Ray didn't have a foggiest what she was spouting. Then again, it was cute how he still listened despite. Yeah, Ray replied, making Tsunade's wandering mind focus on him. I'm checking on them daily since the massacre. No change these 2 months, to be honest. From what Conan's information network and my observations tell me, nobody who is not in our village but Obito and Itachi knows what really happened. Even then, these two have no real clue who interrupted their mission. Ray carelessly shrugged. Konoha was briefly in an uproar when the bodies dissolved in their morgue, but honestly there was simply no evidence to follow, so they reluctantly gave up. I gotta say, good job with that, Tsunade. Blushing slightly, Tsunade grinned. Thanks. How is the Sasuke kid? Ray asked Tsunade. That was yet another shock for Ray. He honestly thought he would get all the Uchihas only to miss Sasuke for whatever reason. The kid was not in the compound during the attack. This little fact somehow eluded Ray, which somewhat messed his plans up. Ray really wasn't about to try kidnapping the kid. Not when he was so sure Lil Sasuke would have a non-stop ANBU guard on his ass. As such, Sasuke was still the last Uchiha in Konoha. Funny how fate worked. And broody as heck, gloomy as fuck and quiet too. At least Anko is happy he is not complaining when she put him through his paces. According to her, Naruto has enough decibels for both of them. Frankly, I have no idea how did this even happen. Tsunade amusedly shook her head. About a month after the massacre, Tsunade got a message from Anko that Naruto Uzumaki made Sasuke his rival. Naturally, Naruto trashed Sasuke in every way imaginable since he was trained by Anko. To Rei's surprise, however, Sasuke wasn't the cold jerk he remembered from the show. It took Rei only a few seconds to realize that because of him, Itachi had no time or energy to subject Sasuke to Tsukuyomi of his clan being massacred again and again. The brat was still a broody and darkish emo creature of grief and hurt, but he was not that bad yet. Clearly, Naruto did some talk no jutsu when he met him in the academy, and voila, Anko found herself having 2 brats running around in the Senju compound, while the ANBU following Sasuke could only witlessly stand on the edge of the said compound, not knowing what to do. Really, both Rei and Tsunade found that as funny as it was jaw-dropping. This was a total coincidence, as Anko and Naruto didn't have even an inkling of what really happened during the massacre, and the fact their agents in Konoha still helped their schemes along without even knowing it made Rei and Tsunade their day. Rei finished the food and put 2 plates on the table, one in front of Tsunade, who slightly moaned when she smelled it, and one in front of himself as he sat down and briefly enjoyed Tsunade's nude chest laying on display on the table, her nipples still hard, showing just how horny she still was. Not for a second did Rei doubt she did that on purpose. And damn, was it working. "I heard you joined the Uchiha retraining program as an instructor," Rei spoke, trying to divert his attention from Tsunade's breasts and the tight feeling in his pants. "One senju against the entire clan? That must have been humbling." Tsunade smirked in glee at how reluctantly Rei tried to lift his eyes from her chest. This feeling was only enhanced as she relished in the knowledge he failed. She could still see how his pupils were slightly lower than they should be. A normal person wouldn't even notice, but she was both medic and ninja. It was easy to note that Rei's eyes were positioned to look at her face, but he was still staring at her breasts. There is no better feeling than knowing my man desires me." Tsunade basked in Rei's attention, straightening her back, which pushed her breasts slightly forward, made them that much more tempting. "That's the entire point of the program, isn't it?" she almost purred. "Beat the arrogance out of them." Rei took a long breath and finally tore his eyes from Tsunade's chest, centering himself and slightly smiling at his victory when he saw her lips curl into a small frown. "Yeah, I am just happy Isamu did his job and nobody tried to run away. Now that would be awkward." "Well, you do have silencing seals on them. It's not like they could go blabbing around about the existence of our village. Uchihas are arrogant ponces. They are not stupid. I'm sure most of them actually realizes their situation in full and see this chance you provided for what it is. A chance at survival. It really helps you are offering them additional benefits. Once my research is done, I really don't think the Uchiha clan will ever leave the village, even if you tried to remove them, kicking and screaming. Their bloodline is simply that important to them." Tsunade hummed and started eating. Rei nodded. Tsunade was researching how to awaken Sharingan in every single Uchiha kid. She was actually almost done with it, and yesterday's night of wild sex was a celebration of the partial completion of her research. Rei assigned her that task, and so she felt she was entitled to certain rewards. Not that Rei would argue that point with her. It was as much rewarding for him as it was for her after all. In any case, Tsunade found a way to help awaken Sharingan and mature it in a few years without all that near-death situation crap. By the time the Uchiha clan kids leave the academy in their village, they will all have fully matured Sharingan and actually know how to use it. In hindsight, Rei could see how the Uchiha clan would never leave. Especially since the method will be one of the village secrets locked behind so many secrecy seals. It would spook even Danzo. Well, I still think subjecting kids to traumatizing genjutsu of their parents being slaughtered and tortured in front of their eyes on the starting day is a bit too brutal. Rei pondered aloud. But I can see the benefits. It will just require quite a bit of psychological help. Tsunade rolled her eyes. "Leave that to me. That's the job for my department." She dismissed his concerns. "This way, our little ninjas will be prepared for the day when they find themselves in the kill or be killed situation. If they complain about it or can't put themselves together after the experience, they are not fit to be a ninja." She shrugged. "My Sharingan Awakening Serum can only do so much. It can only grant the kids who would otherwise never be able to awaken the bloodline a chance to do precisely that. I'm afraid the trauma still has to be administered in proper amounts for it to work. Leave the academy to me and Conan. We both know our methods are brutal, but I would rather encourage our academy students to explore their mental and physical limits in a controlled environment rather than die somewhere in a ditch because they overestimated themselves." Rei snorted but let it go. He knew she was right. There was nothing to argue about. He decided to attack his food with a newfound vigor to vent his slight frustration. Tsunade watched as Rei chomped on his food, and the feeling of contentment again spread through her body. The first stage of her surprise plan was finished thanks to the Uchiha massacre. Since she and Rei came back from the visit to the fire capital, she wondered how she could be useful to Rei. With the recent events and their consequences, Tsunade finally found an answer and pulled together a plan. From what happened recently, she was sure Rei would be pleased, and she couldn't wait to see his shock and delight once he found out. Briefly, Tsunade pondered if she should tell him about her plan, but then again, that would take away the whole point of surprise. In the end, she decided against it after all. What could go wrong?